class. In today's class we are going to discuss anatomy of stem. Okay. Now anatomy of root that we have discussed in the last class, you have seen that there is not much of a difference between dicot root and monocot roots anatomy, isn't it? But here that we are going to discuss about stem, you will find that there is a considerable amount of differences found in the anatomy of dicot stem and monocot stem. Okay, so let us start with dicot stem. So look at this diagram. So dicot stem, as you already know from our previous discussion, will start, or it would have the outermost layer, that is the epidermis. Okay, epidermis being the outermost protective layer present in the dicot stem, and it would be surrounded by numerous hair-like projections, that is the trichome. Okay, so trichomes, they are going to be helpful in preventing water loss, or it would be reducing the rate for transpiration, right? Now, internal to the epidermis would remain the cortex, and cortex is very well developed in case of dicot stem. So it would be further divided into three distinct layers, that is hypodermis, then internal to that general cortex, and then inside the endodermis. Okay, so now in the hypodermis, if we talk about, see, hypodermis is 3 to 5 layered. It is cholenchymatous. If you remember, we have already discussed that in the dicot stem, the cells that makes up the hypodermis is going to be cholenchymatous, right? So it is cholenchymatous, closely packed. There would be no intercellular space between the cells, and it would provide mechanical support. Of course, you know very well that cholenchyma are the cells which are the living mechanical tissue, isn't it? Cholenchyma is itself referred as living mechanical tissue. In that case, of course, it would be providing mechanical support. Alright. Now, next, regarding general cortex. Now, general cortex would remain internal to the hypodermis, and it is of course going to be multi-layered, and general cortex would be always made up of parenchyma cells, where the cells would be loosely packed. So see here, it is many layered, parenchymatous and loosely packed, means the cells will have a lot of intercellular space between them. Alright, next, endodermis. Now there is a special mention regarding the endodermis present in the dicot stem, because the endodermis here would contain cells which would possess starch grains. Okay, endodermis would possess starch grains in the cell. So that's why in the dicot stem we will call the endodermis to be starch sheath as well. Okay, starch sheath as well. It's very, very important for you to remember. Now, apart from that, inside or internal to the endodermis would remain the pericycle. Now, pericycle in case of dicot stem would be found in the form of some patches, and those patches again would be semi-lunar or half-moon shaped in nature. Okay, and they would be found associated with the vascular bundles. So see here, it is present as patches, semi-lunar means half-moon shaped, and of course sclerenchymatous. This is very, very important and information you should remember. See, in this diagram, these darkened portions that you see, those darkened portions are actually the pericycle. So it's not a continuous layer unlike the endodermis or general cortex or hypodermis. It's in the form of some few patches. Right? It is in the form of some patches. Alright, and it's sclerenchymatous in nature. Okay. Now, next, internal to the pericycle would remain the vascular bundles. Now, vascular bundles here would be, of course, it is dicot stem after all. So, you know very well, it is going to be open. Means the cambium or the thin layer of meristems would be present between xylem and phloem. So, cambium is going to be present here. That's why the plant body is going to allow secondary growth, or it is going to be open towards secondary growth. Hence, open vascular bundle, isn't it? So open endark. So endark means, of course, it means that there would be metaxylem that would be towards periphery, and protoxylem that would be towards pith, isn't it? Exact opposite to that would be exarch, which is found in the roots, right? So it is open endark, metaxylem towards periphery and protoxylem towards pith. conjoined. Of course, you can see the conjoined nature means the xylem will be towards pith and phloem will be towards pericycle. Alright, always it is going to be maintained. So, it is like that. Okay, suppose this internally will be xylem and outside towards pericycle will be phloem. That's how it would be arranged. Okay. Now, next, characteristic ring-like arrangement. Now, you can see here that the number of vascular bundles are numerous. There are numerous vascular bundles present, and those vascular bundles would be arranged in a ring-like manner. It would be circularly, properly, like it will not be scattered here and there. It would be properly arranged in a like circular or in a ring-like manner. That's a characteristic of dicot stem. Okay, do remember. As soon as in the question, suppose in multiple choice question you get to hear that what is the anatomy or which part of the plant body are we suggesting when we say ring-like arrangement of vascular bundles, immediately what you should decide is dicot stem. Alright. Now, apart from that, finally we reach the core of the plant body, and that is pith. So pith, as you can see in the diagram itself, is huge. It's large, okay, and its parenchymatous loosely packed. So the cells here which are going to be parenchymatous would have a lot of intercellular space between them, and pith rays are present which will also help in radial conduction of water. Now, as I have told you already about pith rays or medullary rays, after all, because pith is also known as medulla, isn't it? So in that case, these are these sections that you can see, these gaps, okay, these portions of the pith that are seen as extensions of the pith. Okay, pith is otherwise suppose circular, and these are some extensions of the pith, isn't it? So these appear to be like rays of the pith, and they are known as pith rays or medullary rays. As I've already told you before, the pith rays will consist of cells which makes up the pith. So if the pith is made up of parenchyma cells, so pith rays will also possess parenchyma cells, okay, and they will help in radial conduction of water as well. Fine. So this is the discussion regarding dicot stems anatomy. Next, let us discuss monocot stems anatomy. Alright. So now, regarding the monocot stem, first thing, you can see a marked difference in the diagram itself, right? In the diagram itself, you can see that there is a huge difference between dicot stem and monocot stems anatomy, right? The most important thing that you can see, or the most, obvious thing that you can see the difference, is that here there are no distinct layers of cortex, like so many layers are not there. And of course, the most prominent part, that is the pith, is missing. Okay, so that's the first and foremost difference that you need to remember. In the dicot stem, the cortex would be it will be having distinct layers, and of course there will be a pith present. But in monocot stem, pith is absent. Cortex will be of course not having any distinct layers, and pith absent. This is very, very, very important regarding monocot stem. Alright, understood this? Fine. So let's see. See, in monocot stem, we have the outermost layer, of course, is similar, that is epidermis. Trichomes are missing. Okay. So epidermis is going to be single layered. Cuticle is of course present. Stomata also may be present. Okay. Now, apart from epidermis being a single layered cuticle present and providing protection, let us move inside, that is the hypodermis. Hypodermis is the only layer of cortex that's present. Okay, hypodermis is the only layer of cortex present, because general cortex or endodermis or as such things are missing. Okay, so see, hypodermis, one to many layered, sclerenchymatous, provides mechanical support. Of course, you know very well that in dicot stem, the hypodermis is made up of collenchyma, but in case of monocots, it's made up of sclerenchyma, isn't it? As because collenchyma is absent in monocots. So here, hypodermis being present, it is made up of sclerenchyma, and sclerenchyma means mechanical support. So of course, it would be providing mechanical support to the plant body. Next, internal to the hypodermis, there is no as such layer formation anymore. There is no further distinct layers anymore present inside the monocot stem. Now we have a continuous, uniform deposition of cells, mainly parenchyma cells, and together the whole continuous or uniform layer of parenchyma cells which makes up the body of monocot stem is called ground tissue. Okay, it's a uniform layer without any distinctions. Okay, so ground tissue, well developed cortical layers or pith of course is absent, and it is of course made up of parenchyma cells, which I told you it would be made up of parenchyma cells, because after all parenchyma makes up the bulk of the plant body, isn't it? So that's why parenchyma cells. Now in this parenchyma cell or the ground tissue continuously remains scattered certain vascular bundles. So these vascular bundles being scattered here and there everywhere, pith is not distinct or pith is not formed. So because of the scattering of vascular bundle itself, monocot stem do not possess pith. And it's a very important characteristic that distinguishes the monocot stem from the dicot, because in monocot stem the vascular bundles are all scattered, but you have seen in dicot stem the vascular bundles were all ring-like arrangement. They were showing ring-like arrangement. That's a very, very important difference. Okay, so see, the vascular bundles, they are large number of vascular bundles present, as you can see in the diagram itself, and they are smaller or densely packed at the periphery. That means towards the hypodermis, the vascular bundles will be smaller, but they would be numerous. But as you move towards the center, the vascular bundles will be larger, but they would be having a lot of gap between them. They would not be, very much gathered together, or they would be loosely arranged. Alright. So see, they are smaller or densely packed at periphery, but larger and loosely arranged at the center. Now, cambium absent. Of course, monocots, they do not show secondary growth. So in that case, cambium will be of course absent. And oval outline. All the vascular bundles will kind of show oval outline, and bundle sheaths are present. Now what is bundle sheath? This is something new you're coming across, right? See, in the monocot stem, the vascular bundles, that is the xylem and phloem, it would remain, surrounded by a layer of sclerenchyma cells. And this layer would form a sheath, right? And that is called the bundle sheath cells. Okay, so it would be all the vascular bundles would actually remain surrounded by this sclerenchyma cells forming a sheath, and that's called bundle sheath cells. Okay, now that's the important characteristics in monocots. Now conjoined, closed and enduct. Of course, vascular bundles are going to be closed, cambium is absent. And of course, it is going to be conjoined, that is xylem and phloem are together. Conjoined. Stem means conjoined, right? And enduct. That's again similarity between dicot and monocot stem. Both shows enduct arrangement, that is the metaxylem towards periphery and protoxylem towards pith. Next, water containing cavities are mainly present, or their main characteristics. So in monocots, this is something of a speciality which is not found in the dicots. In case of monocot stems, there are some water, containing cavities found in their body or in their anatomy which are completely missing in the dicots. Lastly, phloem parenchyma is absent in the phloems. Now phloem is made up of 4 types of cells, all of you know about it, that is sieve tubes, and then there is companion cell, then there is phloem fiber and phloem parenchyma. The rest of the 3 are going to be present, but phloem parenchyma would be absent in the monocots, whereas all 4 elements of phloem would be present in dicots. Alright, and of course lastly the pith would be absent. So this being the discussion regarding monocot stem as well. I hope all of you are clear about it, right? So what you need to remember is a layer of distinction in case of dicot stem, which is important. Now that whole discussion is done, can you tell me what are the distinct layers that are present in the body of the dicot stem, one after another? Let's start with the outermost layer, that is of course epidermis with certain hair-like projections, and of course these are trichomes, right? Internal to the epidermis would remain hypodermis, which is going to be cholecystoma. As soon as you remember the layer that would be present in the sequence, okay, like after epidermis you know it's hypodermis, you should also be able to recall that what kind of cells are present. So hypodermis will be cholecystoma. Then there will be multi-layered general cortex, and general cortex you know would be parenchymatous. Then we have endodermis, and endodermis would be starch sheet, isn't it? It would containing cells which would be having starch grains in them. After endodermis we have pericycle, right? So pericycle is also mostly going to be sclerenchymatous in the form of patches and semiluna, right? After pericycle, what do we have? This is important. Phloem. We have phloem, right? Even if you're looking at it in the diagram together, but as per sequence you should remember, after pericycle we directly have phloem. Then after phloem what do we have? It's open vascular bundle, so of course not xylem but cambium, isn't it? After cambium we have xylem, but which xylem? Metaxylem or protoxylem? Of course metaxylem. Then we have protoxylem, and then we have pith. So this is the sequence you should remember, okay? Trichome, epidermis, hypodermis, general cortex, endodermis, pericycle, phloem, cambium, metaxylem, protoxylem, and then pith. Alright, so this is all about our whole discussion regarding the anatomy of stem. After the whole discussion, I suggest that after studying, you try to make a comparative study. Like you should try to make a column where you suggest the difference between dicot stem and monocot stems anatomy. Try to write as many points as you can, and that would be making sure that your revision or your studies regarding the anatomy of stem is okay, or the entire concept is clear to you. Okay, so that much for today's class. In the next class we'll start with anatomy of leaf. Thank you.